I was pulling up the blurb.
Oh, well, I have the blurb this time too. So suck my balls. Do you have next week's
Oh,
blurb
yeah.
though? That's the real test of a man.
All right, let's do this.
As you know, this is the measure of an episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek genuine Star Trek and not just comedy hijinks. But not in a bad way.
Not in a
I'm
bad
Paul.
way. Yeah, I'm Jonathan. And we do this with 3 criteria. Number 1 is the episode written with sci-fi in mind. And so there is sci-fi actually in the plot. Number 2 is that sci-fi presented in a unique or novel way. And 3, is there an ethical or moral dilemma that a character must face? I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul. And this week we watched Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 5, Spock Amok. Which I don't know if it is some kind of reference, or is it just trying to sound like the old series or the original series type of naming scheme?
100%. Yep.
So here's the blurb. It's a comedy of manners. When Spock has a personal visit in the middle of Spock and Captain Pike's crucial negotiations with an unusual alien species. Which is funny because I feel like the alien species thing is kind of just a side thing. It's not really the plot of the episode.
Oh, no, yeah.
But
not at
what
all.
is the plot
Right.
of the episode? I mean, but I have to say, in terms of how well they're able to imply the original series, get the right gesture, the right feeling of the original series, and still make a modern Star Trek show, they hit the nail on the head. Well, they've been hitting the nail on the head.
Yes.
So the nail is like getting into the wood perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's so deep in there.
Because they keep hitting the nail on the head.
Right.
It's not like the Mr. Miyagi thing where they hit it once and it goes in. Like they keep kind of just tapping it in.
Yeah, but they like you said, they just keep nailing it every time.
Yeah. Are you saying that I stretched that metaphor too long?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay. Now this is just hijinks. But yeah, this was a very interesting episode because this feels like this does not feel like a season 1 episode. This feels like a season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episode. Right?
Yeah.
It feels like they're letting their hair down a little too early.
Right. But it's one of the advantages that they have of using characters that we've seen before because they don't have to establish the characters. You know, like we didn't really need a Spock episode because we know him so well already. And so I think that was kind of the point. They were like, well, since we know Spock, like, why don't we have a little bit of fun with him? You know, why don't we bring back his fiance when have a dream battle sequence with the music, which was amazing.
I don't know if I missed something with the reference to that old, very popular Cable Guy score. I don't know that episode, and so I know that Kirk is fighting somebody, but I don't know what's going on. I don't know the context, and so it was odd that they chose that moment to quote that. I guess now is the episode to do that, so it's tongue in cheek, and so it doesn't feel corny when they do it in like an actual proper like earnest episode.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an iconic scene where Kirk is fighting Spock, and that's the music that plays in the background.
Oh, Kirk is fighting Spock.
Yeah.
Oh, spoilers. But that's actually gives it more context, I guess.
Yeah. I like the scene later on where he's telling Nurse Chapel his dream, and she's like, well, you're not exactly subtle.
Well, the thing is, I didn't like this. I don't like these dream sequences when it's obvious that it's a dream. I mean, I kind of knew that it was a dream from the beginning, but when he starts fighting himself.
Right. You didn't like the Superman 3 reference?
Yeah. Well, I who isn't getting that reference? But also, not only did they replace his ears, but they gave him a new hairdo. They gave him like a human hairdo.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, I had to rewind it. I was like, did he have that hair before? He looks different.
Right.
So he has different hair. But anyway, I hate these things where they go on forever when we know it's a dream. We get the idea. He's battling himself. We didn't have to be that long.
I guess that's true. Yeah. I would guess that part of it was just to have that music sting and be able to play the whole thing. Although it would have been really funny if it was like dan 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 dan, dan and just stopped there as he woke up.
Yeah. I guess that's the problem when you want to quote the music. They probably wrote the scene with the music in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't just do one phrase or it feels like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're right. You're so right.
But speaking of the music, there were a lot of musical motif references and stings in this episode. And I've personally, I like this was not like Picard. I felt they were all earned. They were great to hear. I loved this episode.
Well, it's the most cartoony, I guess.
But again, like it was so nice that they had Spock doing it, and like just his almost meta reference of like, well, that will surely lead to hijinks. Like,
yeah, they were obviously have seen the show as well.
Right.
Right.
Well, they've seen the original series.
Right. Definitely. Even though it hasn't happened yet.
Right. I know.
But it was a really well-written episode.
It was.
I mean, I had this knee-jerk reaction to it, which is when they were it's overscored. And I was like, why are they overscoring? Like, this is the first 5 minutes of the show.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe first 5 or 10 minutes.
Right, but the dream sequence, yeah.
Well, the dream sequence and then the latter stuff. And it just felt like, man, there's a lot of music in this. And they're scoring just conversations. It's like, what is going on? But now it kind of works. Now it makes sense as to why they overscored it, because it works. I mean, it's actually kind of scored like a 90s romantic comedy. Like,
oh, for sure.
The only one that comes through is Liar Liar. Another one.
That classic romantic comedy.
Well, it kind of is. That's a great movie, by the way. I feel as though that might be Jim Carrey's last great comedy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that was definitely a time where he was still highlighting his physical humor and and not just comedic timing or faces.
I mean, that's what we like about Jim Carrey, is that he's able to do that stuff, and it's funny every single time.
Right.
I don't know. Like when he's more, it's kind of like Robin Williams when he plays these roles that are more introverted and introspective. He's a good actor, but that's not why we like him, I guess. I guess Robin Williams is a bad example because he actually is a pretty sympathetic character when he's being serious. But how do we get onto that? You derailed us.
You were talking about the music of a rom-com.
That's right. But, okay, so this is another thing that I think they're doing with aliens on this show.
Okay.
Which we talked about in another episode, I can't remember which one, where it's not that all the different aliens of the Star Trek universe are distinct, totally distinct. It seems like they all have specific characteristics of humans that are kind of extrapolated and explored.
Well, and that the entire species has. Right.
It's a monoculturistic thing
Yeah.
with each character, with each alien species. But we find out that basically Vulcans have the exact same relationship dynamics as humans. Mm-hmm. It's just done without hyperbole.
Yeah.
So if you think about the discussion between, what is it, Pating?
Yep.
Taping?
Well, nope. We're going with Pating.
Okay, Pating. So there's a point where Spock says, "Look, I know we said that we'd hang out, but I got this work thing, couldn't be helped." And he's like, "You're upset." He's like, "No, just not surprised." And that is a very common interaction, I think, in relationships.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like it. I'm okay with it not being this weird alien thing where it's totally unrelatable. I'm okay with it. I think it's funny. And I guess this is a really good episode to have these types of dynamics in.
The other thing too that I really appreciate was that it's like the writers recognized that any of these plots would be too light to carry the episode. So they threw in just a bunch of light storylines.
Right.
Like Una and Nuh-uh going, like playing Enterprise Bingo. And just, I wish they had one scene of the Doctor fly fishing. Like, that would have been so great. Just cut to him, and like that's his whole plot line. He's just out there enjoying it.
Well, you kind of got it. There was one shot of him casting a line. It was short, but he's not fly fishing. He's just regular fishing with a reel, rod and reel.
Right.
But there is one kind of slow motion shot that they heavily romanticized for some reason.
Oh, where was it?
Somewhere in the middle. It's outside on one of the dome biospheres, so I don't remember where it is. But if you're cranking along at 3 speed, you're definitely going to miss it.
Dang it. I don't know how I missed it then. Well, then I love that they did that. That's fantastic.
I have a question then. They brought this up. I'm not bringing this up. They did this.
Okay.
So we still fish. So
Yeah.
are they fishing for real fish? Are these real fish that they're catching?
Well, yes, but it's Solarian fish or whatever.
But they don't. I mean, I guess it's a pastime. I guess it's more of a hobby. They're not catching it for dinner. Maybe they are.
Well, and
don't know.
I would imagine also that at this point, just the whole sacredness of life and all that sort of thing. They're not even doing it with hooks. They've got some other kind of maybe there's like a little mini tractor beam that's on the end of the fishing line that just
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice. But that is not the case because when in this scene that you missed, he obviously has a hook and on his hat he takes off one of the lures and is going to hook a fish. And I'm just curious, not so much from the perspective of it's just the future, but yeah, it kind of brings to mind, are they still fishing? Do we still fish or hunt as humans in the 23rd, 24th century?
right. And I mean, where if we fish, then where is that line drawn? You're fishing just for fun. Are you hunting just for fun?
Right, which is like the worst kind,
Right.
I guess.
Right.
We talk about this from time to time. Does Captain Archer have real eggs when he sits down, or are those some sort of different kind of egg?
Mm-hmm.
Not just for the, as you said, sanctity of life thing, but they spoil. Eggs are not. You can't freeze eggs. Can you freeze eggs?
You can, but they get really weird. Like you
Their
could
personality changes.
Yeah. You could use frozen eggs for baking, but if you use them for cooking, you froze eggs and then you thawed them out to make breakfast, they just get very almost like ground sausage.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
They're really
weird.
weird. Yeah.
okay. We keep on getting sidetracked. There's so much to talk about.
I know. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. This show is so great. I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch it on something else. I'm going to put up my computer so I can take notes. And I just got sucked in. I was like, I have no notes. The only thing that I wrote was I love the callbacks to everything. Like the music, the fact that he was wearing a greenish uniform, the fact that just the plot itself, this was very classic original series, but like you said, just updated in a way that it fit with this modern aesthetic beautifully.
Yeah, and once again, we see everybody's gigantic quarters, which I love.
Right?
Gigantic quarters.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a really good long shot of Pike's quarters where they're having their first kind of debrief or pre-brief.
Post pre-brief? That's
whatever.
a brief.
So, okay, not to Paul. To Ping. Pating and Spock switch bodies.
Yes.
And it's so funny that we talked about it. There was another episode where we talked about Fred Savage and Judge Reinhold.
Oh, right? That's so true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but those movies have trained me for some reason because immediately when they switched bodies, I had this reaction of they have to keep it a secret now. And
Mm-hmm.
you knew where it was going, where she was going to have to go be Spock and he was
Right.
going to have to go be Ting. And I thought to myself, God, how many times we know the hijinks. They said it to us.
Right.
I don't want hijinks.
Yes.
I was like, thank you.
Me neither.
Yeah. But I've been trained by those 80s, 90s movies.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
That they have to keep it a secret.
Right.
And I was like, and they don't.
No.
Why would they have to keep it a secret? Right? It's sort of like in Picard when Agnes becomes infected by the Borg Queen. And she keeps it a secret. I think because narratively, that's what we do. That's our habit when we do these things where when something bad has happened, it's like, oh, I can't let anybody know.
Right.
Why? Why do I feel that way? Because it's not the case. Agnes should have told everybody immediately.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like she was in fear of being shot or executed because, got the Borg Queen in here. That wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing here. I immediately had this knee-jerk reaction of, well, now they have to keep it a secret.
Right.
Did that happen for you?
No, I didn't think about it specifically, but I assumed that they were going to keep it a secret and they were going to have to go and we would see both of them try to pretend without anyone there, without anyone there to help them, that they were the other person. And I was actually hoping to see it. I mean, they did have a little moment where Patak, so we'll call her that.
Patak. What?
Yeah, T'Pring in Spock's body.
Oh, I see. Nice.
Where he says like you can. I'm sure with me telling you that you can clearly see the differences now. And Pike was like, clearly, like.
And actually, I could. When he said that, I was like, oh, he's standing differently.
Oh yeah, I did notice the standing differently, but I mean, just the inflections in the dialogue was virtually indistinguishable, and so I just loved that. Like, I'm sure you must realize I'm acting weird. He's like,
right.
Yeah.
All the jokes landed to me.
Yes.
Again, they weren't making moments out of them.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Although the music was very Mickey Mousey, it wasn't stinging the jokes,
right,
which was good.
Yeah.
And they were all like not meant to be funny. They were just sort of side comments. Mm-hmm. Kind of like when I don't know her name. When she comes in and she's with all the different aliens and she wants to leave. And she said, Captain, I should leave because I have to go do security things. You know? And it was just, it's funny.
Right.
Right? That's funny that she would say that.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't normally say that.
I liked how Una was very sympathetic with her cadet, and Na'an was like throwing the chair and being like, "What is bingo?" Like,
and she made her cry.
Yeah,
that was really funny. And we didn't linger. It's sort of the problem that Saturday Night Live has, where they have a good joke, but they feel the need to create an 11-minute sketch around the really good joke. And very rarely are you entertained the entire 11 minutes. And so, but they didn't, like, I could have imagined the entire episode taking place with that interrogation bit.
You couldn't imagine, or you could have imagined?
No, I could in the hands of a lesser writer. But they didn't do that. They had the joke, they made the joke, and they moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how the whole thing was. And I just going back to, nobody kept secrets. I liked that nobody kept secrets. Like, even at the end, they used it as a joke, which was great. But when Sping punched that guy, he's like, so much for diplomacy or whatever. He then tells her at the end of the episode. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't watched the episode, for those of you listening now, when this episode aired for the first time.
Yeah, that was the storyline that I didn't quite understand. If they were trying to capture this person, why not you just walk up to him and stun him? I guess. I couldn't quite, I must have missed something as to why they were being so diplomatic about this.
Yeah.
But when they switched bodies, that in terms of actor research, took the least amount of research that will ever have to be taken. Right?
So true, right.
Because it's not like you can just adopt mannerisms of somebody who's acting like a Vulcan. Right? So what in Enterprise Bingo, I read the whole list. I paused it and read the whole list.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which I think they knew people would do.
Oh, for sure.
They left it up there quite a bit long.
Right.
And one of them was sneak a tribble into the transporter buffer. And I know I'm not supposed to do this, but does this mean that there are tribbles on board?
Oh.
Because if it's on the Enterprise Bingo, it's something that everybody has to do.
Right.
So are there tribbles on there, or do they have tribbles, like pattern buffer files that they can sneak into the pattern buffer?
I guess also, what does that mean? Like, are you unofficially transporting something? And so, the goal is to transport something insignificant without getting caught? Is it that you're trying to put it in the transporter buffer so somebody's going to come through like half human, or like, human with tribble hair?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is that the practical joke of when the transporter chief initializes a transport, that a tribble just shows up when it materializes.
Oh, okay.
And that's the funny thing.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I would hope that it's not to make a new type of alien,
right?
Where they're part tribble, part human. Although I would want to see that.
I think you're right. Like, because that sounds hilarious. Like
it doesn't make a lot of sense because it seems like transporting. That's the one thing you really want to take seriously at all times,
right?
Because we're talking about
life,
like people.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just struck me as like, oh, that has some repercussions.
Yeah, some ramifications. Exactly. Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if this will make it into the podcast, but all the commercials for every single ad break was for a medication. Is that happening for you too?
No. I mean, once in every commercial break, there was a medication, but mostly I got feminine products.
Interesting.
Yeah, I got like secret deodorant and pads and some kind of like secret spray as well.
Well, it's funny because I am recording right now on the campus of a hospital.
Oh,
And so I'm wondering if there's some sort of location-based ad serving
right.
because you are surrounded by women where you live.
I
So
am, but that's the weird thing. Like we don't Google that stuff, you know, like so it's not in our search database anywhere. So I don't know.
it was weird because every single one was like a super long 2-minute
Right.
commercial.
Which bookends with talking about how the medication changes your life, and the other 1 minute 56 seconds is about all of the side effects.
That's totally true. And there was a lot of just people holding hands by the fountain and frolicking in the park without any kind of voiceover. It was just
weird.
music and them. It's like they had all this ad time.
Right.
And they're like, we don't have enough copy. So just put them in there frolicking in the park.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's time for a nerd nitpick.
Okay.
This is at the end of the episode where Una and La'a are talking. No, they're talking, but they're also on the outside of the ship.
Yes.
And this is part of this is the last part of their bingo.
Yeah.
That they're playing.
Well, right. And yeah, just so I'm not sure if you got this or not, but their bingo had to be updated because they're the rule makers. So all of the rules that they were breaking, like it was fine that they were because they were the ones who created the rules. So they had to pick something that was like a Federation rule.
And what was the rule they were breaking?
I don't know. Don't walk on the surface of a starship without a spacesuit.
Well, here's why. This is a rule. I understand that the shields were up,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so they were not technically exposed to the vacuum of space. The problem is the Enterprise, judging by all the quarters and the size of the quarters, is a damn big ship.
Right.
So the shield has to encompass that ship.
Right.
So it's the size of a small fucking moon. And so
I don't mean to cut you off, but they've shown that in other episodes where the shields were up, and the shields basically wrap around the ship directly. It's not an egg around the whole ship the way it is on Enterprise D.
okay. So it's just sort of a skin of shields.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even still, even if it's just 10 feet off the hull of the whatever,
Right.
to pressurize that amount of space
Mm,
would take an enormous amount of air.
right.
Even if you opened all the hatches and let all the air come out of the Enterprise into that space, I think it would still not be enough. So the idea that they're walking around, like there wouldn't be any air. They'd have
Right.
to pressurize it. So
Right.
that wouldn't work. But I did like that they were upside down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were upside down because the nacelles sit kind of to the side, like along the saucer section. I'm trying to visualize it right now.
Right.
And the nacelles were like not visible from their point of view. So I think they were upside down, kind of like in First Contact, the movie.
Yeah.
They're on the underside of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that the aliens that they're negotiating with to ally with the Federation.
Right.
It's funny they said ally and not join the Federation. I don't know if those two things were the same, but regardless, their ship was like leaving their solar ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that when we first saw it, when it's revealed that they decided to ally after Pike has his moment of his revelation that he knows how to negotiate with them.
Right.
When we see it and they look out the window and they're leaving, by the way, they would have had to have sprinted to their ship. But so their flag starts flying. They start flying the flag.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes up. And when we go to the scene with Una, the flag is down. So I thought, oh, that's awesome that they even thought of that ship, if it was sort of on the same plane,
Right.
oriented, that they'd be looking at it upside down. I don't know if that's actually the case because I didn't look at it well enough.
Right.
But as you have said before in the past, where your complaint is always that when there are battles like in Next Gen or whatever, that they're kind of always on the same XY plane.
Yeah.
There's not a sense of three-dimensionality.
Right. There's not really a Z plane. Yeah.
Right. But they handled that.
Yeah.
So you should be satisfied.
Yeah. And I was.
Okay.
Yeah. So what was? Oh, just your nitpick about the pressure. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to walk around outside the shields.
Right.
Also, why risk it? Those things are like the first thing to go down.
Not really.
Always.
Like shields are. I mean, yes, they're always down, but they're down to a certain percent. You know, they're not like, oh, shields are offline. Happens a lot.
Well, that begs the question. When they say that shields are at 40%, does that mean that they are like there's like an outer shell and you're kind of scraping away the outer shell, and when they're down to 0, there is no more outer shell. So you're completely protected until it's down to 0, or do you start to suffer more damage as the percentage goes down?
Right. Well, yeah, because that's the other part of it too. Like they're hitting a force field. You know, it's a barrier that is the one that's being attacked. And how is it losing its integrity?
Well, it's being drained of power, I guess. But
okay. Like
it's sort of being drained. Every time you hit it, it drains it.
That makes sense.
I don't know what it's draining from.
Right.
Because the power is not going down.
Well,
so how is it getting, right? Because you still have the warp core and it's still generating power. So why can't it be sort of regenerating after, I guess it does regenerate. Maybe it takes an extremely large amount of power. And
right.
it just, when you're getting attacked, you don't have time for it to regenerate. But I couldn't quite, it's sort of unclear to me. Like, would they, I guess my point is, would they be safe if they just got attacked and the shields went down to like 20% all of a sudden? Would they still be okay until they got to the airlock? Or is there more danger because they're 20% and it's just not as good? Like, with all the air, if there were air in there, would it get sucked out?
Mm-hmm.
And either way, it seems like a really stupid idea to be on the old hull without a spacesuit on.
Right. No, I agree. But looking at it now, they're on the top of the disc. They're at the nose. They're not at the tail.
No, but they're upside down, right? They're
No.
on the other side.
No.
So where are the nacelles then?
The nacelles are peeking up over the backsides.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm taking away their clever points.
And also the flag is on top.
Well, I think I saw that there's 2 flags.
Yeah, there's the Starfleet flag on top, and then there's some other flag on the bottom.
Like their flag on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's great that all races use flags.
Right? I know, very handy.
Oh, well then I take away their clever points.
Right?
They're no longer as clever as I thought they were.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
But that would have been cool, wouldn't it, if they were upside down?
That would have been cool, yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
Why didn't they do that? So, what's her name? Nurse Chapel. Anyway, they're having a conversation with the helmswoman. I don't know her name. Do you know her name?
No.
Yeah, I can't remember her name. They haven't said it a lot. I don't
Right.
think. Anyway, so they're having this conversation, and it's sort of about
Mm-hmm.
Nurse Chapel and her relationships, which is kind of thematic throughout the show for her.
Yeah.
And she says something very enigmatic at the end. And she says, well, you can be honest. You have to be honest in a relationship. You could try that.
Mm-hmm.
And Chapel's like, well, it has to be the right guy. It has
Uh-huh.
to be the right guy. And then she's going to say something else.
And then she kind of stammers. Yeah. Yep.
And I was wondering, is she talking about the helmswoman?
Right. Well, because also, didn't she, like, when they were talking about the guy that she was going to meet, didn't she also say, like, there was another girl?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the
Okay.
impression that they're making her, it's seemingly fluid, I
Yeah.
guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to tell.
Right.
I think they're making her that way because I think she's got a crush on the helmswoman.
That was the impression that I got, too. Yeah.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
wasn't just me.
No, I actually did go back and watch that scene to, like, find out, you know, because all she said was, I, and then she's like, what? Nothing. You know, so
Yeah.
I went back to hear what her stammer was because, you know, she said, I just haven't found the right guy yet. And then she's like, I thought that she was trying to correct gender. I don't know. But she just said I over and over, which really doesn't correct. But yeah, she kept glancing back to the helmsman as she was taking her drink.
So, okay, what do you think? Proper Star Trek episode? Genuine Star Trek episode?
So yes, proper, but just barely. Because they kind of reference it as well, you know, like at the very end when he's doing in the medical bay to transfer their souls back, you know, he says something like it's starting to either blur the lines or put together science, and Nurse Chapel's like magic, and the doctor's like the mind. We know so little about it, and so just using the mud, which is like a perfect or close to exact replica of Vulcan skin, and using that device. Like there was just enough technobabble for me for that to be like, okay, I'll take that as the sci-fi.
He did say the mind, and maybe in the 23rd or 24th century, whichever one they're in, because I don't know which one they're in,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they still don't quite understand how the brain works and where consciousness truly lies
Right.
in the body and everything. And so maybe there's a bit of that mystery still in medicine, as advanced as they are.
Right.
So I liked the idea that there are still mysteries to be solved in medicine, whereas
Yes.
in Next Gen, it seems like they've kind of solved all those problems.
Right. Yeah.
You know, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, they still encounter problems, but it's not like nothing they can't handle.
Exactly.
But I like that it's still a frontier they haven't quite explored entirely yet. So that was something I did like the idea. I mean, it's kind of diminished now because in the revelation they're not actually upside down on the hull. I guess it's a little bit of science fiction that they're out on the hull. We've not quite seen that before. I don't count Spock and Pating switching bodies. That is not science fiction.
No, not at all. That's Freaky
Really?
Friday. Yeah.
No, it's vice versa. Okay, Freaky
There
Friday.
you go.
Yeah,
Did you mention that last time?
I did.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of, I guess, what was the ethical and moral dilemma of the episode?
Whether or not to share, like whether or not to take over the other person's duties.
Or just to be honest in general, maybe.
Yeah, I'm yes, that was there, and they did face it, but Spock was definitely convinced that they needed to tell the captain. Was it Spock?
Right.
I don't even remember.
I think, well, just the whole idea of being honest in general, like with Nurse Chapel, and I guess with Una and her and Noonien Singh, like this whole idea of being honest with themselves, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like throughout this episode, there was a smattering of ethical or moral dilemmas that characters were facing, but it's kind of the same. Like they were at the same level of levity that the episode was. The stakes weren't very high in any of the ethical or moral dilemmas, but they were there.
Well, the stakes weren't very high in this episode.
Right. That's my
anyway.
point.
Yeah. I mean, so if we look at Liar Liar, the ethical dilemma was not that does he lie, because he has no problem lying.
Right.
Right. It's that he should have the problem lying.
Right.
Right. That there are consequences when he lies. And he finds that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. With his kid.
Yeah.
And
You just had to share that?
I just thought I'd share that. I'm just saying that Liar Liar is the same as this episode.
Clearly. One of my favorite moments in the episode was when Spock answers the call from T'Pring's work, and he goes, T'Pring's not, I'm not, never mind. Yeah, so I mean, I say just in that moment with the Doctor, that was enough to tip it over to a yes for me being a proper Star Trek. Before that, it was just a fantastic, fun episode that really wasn't proper Star Trek because there wasn't any sci-fi until they were able to provide that scientific explanation for the magic. Right.
I kind of thought all of the stuff with the Enterprise bingo, that, for example, when they're shooting each other with the phasers on the lowest setting, I'm not sure what the point would be on having a setting on a phaser that doesn't do anything. It just kind of pinches you. I mean, maybe if you have like a smaller life form that it might be deadly to, you want to back it off a little bit. I was hoping that Noonien Singh, when she starts counting down like 3, 2, 1, that somewhere in between 1 and 2 that she just shoots first.
Right.
It's like you take any advantage you can take.
Well, and I just didn't understand what that one was because Una didn't shoot and it wasn't like a draw, like see who could shoot each other first. So
yeah, they were already pointing at each other. And so why not just 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 shoot?
Right.
It was a very strange.
Well, and also since it just pinches you, like now that Una felt it, it would have been amazing if she shot her back. And then they just started like...
I was expecting that. I was expecting some sort of, reply.
Yeah.
What were the other ones they did? Oh, they did the thing where... Oh, I guess they had to implant some sort of flavor into the gum as they beamed back.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure what that one was.
Man,
either.
that could go wrong super fast.
Yep.
If you mess up, you from then on only smell spearmint for the rest of your life. Like it ruins your life.
Yeah. I mean, but conversely, if you could probably devote your life to figuring out how to fix your nose through the transporter as well.
If you can do it, you can undo it.
Yeah.
Maybe is the science. That's the one bit of science that they're fairly vague on continuously because it doesn't exist. Probably.
Right.
That's why they don't know much about it, is because it's not a real thing. Like if it was a show about cars, they could probably get into how cars work because we have cars.
No, can you
and
explain a little
not
bit more? I'm not
and
following.
not transporters. Yeah, transporters aren't real. Yeah, we don't have much to say about this episode, do we?
So, all right, but where do you fall? Do you think it's proper?
I really want to because it's such a good episode. And I feel like so far all of them have been
Mm-hmm.
proper Star Trek episodes. It just feels that way. I mean, I think that we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the ethical dilemma.
Oh, see, I think we're reaching on the sci-fi part. So, all right, if you think we're reaching on the ethical dilemma and I think we're reaching on the sci-fi, then I think we just need to say that it's not.
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
I feel like we have very often, especially with goddamn DS9, come to the conclusion like, well, we don't want it to be because we didn't like the episode, but it's there.
Right.
And so I feel like we deserve that. This episode deserves that same consideration because I liked it.
I did too, and I would agree with you, except for the fact that you and I are both contending two different areas. You know, I'm saying that like the sci-fi is only barely there, but well, we've also said before it doesn't matter if it's barely there. The question is it there, yes or no?
Is it explored? I
Yeah.
think is our criteria currently, or at least it's mine. And I feel like all of the different little scratching the surface of the science fiction, like with the gum and with the shooting, that you can actually dial it back to the point where it barely does anything to you. That apparently you can walk out on the ship. I don't know if if there's something going on here that I don't know about, but we've not seen that before. I guess they're wearing magnetic boots or gravity boots or whatever.
Yeah, which I didn't see, so not sure how that worked.
I didn't see them either.
Yeah. But everything you're talking about was not integral to the plot. And the criteria specifically says the sci-fi is integral to the plot. It's woven in like a tapestry.
Well, you couldn't have Enterprise Bingo without exploring these different things, and that was part of the plot. You know, granted, the plot wasn't about them, how do we sign the outside? It was just, they had to go do it. But I see what you're saying. We're kind of in the middle, because this is a hijinks episode. It's a comedy. It says it's a comedy in the blurb.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So I don't know. Let's just say yes. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. What other things happened? There were other things that happened, like
there are other things that happen, like
well, it's early in the morning, Jonathan.
but that's the thing. Like everything that happened in this episode, aside from the body swapping, which is fantasy, not sci-fi, it wasn't crucial to the plot. It didn't need to be there for the plot to continue. And the body swapping is technically fantasy because they just do it with their minds. So like there is just that hint of the sci-fi explanation for it. And for me, like that's why it's barely there, but is it there? Yes or no? The answer is yes.
It's peripheral, I guess.
Right.
And I guess that's not what the show's about. That's not what we go for. So maybe you're right. Maybe it isn't actual. And in terms of a dilemma, ethically or morally, no one really has dilemmas.
See, and I think
it's not really a dilemma.
I think T'Prik did, because he kept trying to get out of doing T'Prik's job. He's like,
You try to get out of it?
yeah. He was like, I don't think I should. And they're like, okay, you're the only one who can do it. He's like, yeah, but I really need to be here for Spock. And they're like, okay, but you said like we got him here, and you were the only one that he would meet with, and he's the only one there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a dilemma in the sense that, yeah, all right. So what do you think? Yes or no?
I mean, yes, but it's because, there have been other times where you're like, it's barely there. And I've said, it doesn't matter if it's barely there. The question is it there? And the answer is yes. So
when you're driving down the road and the light
sorry,
changes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
this is not an ad. This is real. When you're driving down the road and the light changes and you're in that neutral zone of you can stop, but it's still kind of a pain in the ass to stop. Right? You're close enough where you're really going to have to slam on the brakes a little bit. Or you could go through, but you're still kind of far away. It's that land of neutrality.
Right.
You know what I
zone,
mean?
if you will. Yeah.
We're there right now. Right? It's kind of either or. And I don't know what to do about that. This happens from time to time. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And say yes.
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
So yes.
We're both saying yes. I feel like you're like, yeah, let's go ahead and say it's yes. And I'm saying it's yes. Like,
I'm glad that we have come to the same conclusion.
Right. Yeah. After talking about it, we agreed that I'm right.
Okay, well, now we know. So now,
So if this
what
is
are we
the first
watching
time you're
next?
listening, normally what we do is we say, let's see what we're watching next. And we play this sound. And then we talk about what
It's
the
going to
next...
be great when I don't.
I know.
When I don't put the sound in.
And we have a random generator that picks some episode of Classic Trek where we then review it and analyze it and discuss basically the same things that we did here. Sometimes we enjoyed as much as we did this one. Other times, not so much. But because of the new Trek, because of Strange New Worlds, we are currently just reviewing those episodes. Once this series is done, like July 7th, I believe is the last episode, then we're going to go back to reviewing Classic Trek, more than likely until new Trek shows up again. But if you liked it, we have over 100 episodes that you can go back and listen to, including the first 4 episodes of Strange New Worlds. You can subscribe. You can leave us a review. You can shoot us an email at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com. Is there anything else?
No, but you should listen to as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because they're all better than this episode.
Are they?
I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. I don't listen to the show.
It's only getting worse with each episode. Like, if you
Yeah.
really want to enjoy the episodes, if you really want to enjoy us, you need to listen to all the previous episodes. That's where we were really good.
Right. And if you want to be not disappointed ever, listen to them in reverse order.
Yeah, it just gets better and better.
It just gets better and better. All right. Okay. Well, I've been Paul.
I've been Jonathan.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
But you already knew that.
Yeah, good. Now, which one were you? Were you Pating as Spock? Or were you Spock as Pating?
I was...
Or should we leave that for the audience to decide?
Yeah, I was either Spock or I was T'Pring as Spock, but I was definitely not Spock as T'Pring.
Okay.
My voice was a little too low for that.
Okay. I've been Paul.